Hi, sorry I'm a second late here. I'm Stacy. This is Walking in My Shoes, and we're loving my veteran this morning. A little slow to get with the hair and all the other 500 things that are coming on. I hope everyone had a great morning so far. Great yesterday. We've been talking about so much stuff going on. Trying to do two things at one time. I'm like multitasking here. So I want to let everybody know good morning. We have a super lot going on. So um, we're still doing those one-on-ones, y'all. Those were amazing. Good morning, Michelle. Those were amazing. We have had such a good time on the one-on-one. So if you have not signed up for yours, go ahead. You have to excuse the wet hair. I am going to my mom's this morning for the little family thing, and I'm running behind as usual. So um, today's topic, there's a few things before we get into today's topic. On the Loving My Veteran page, you will see a thing about Burn Pit 360 that happened to our Iraqi veterans. They were exposed to toxic chemicals. Please go look at their Facebook page and get signed up for that. It is super important that we do that. Um, and was one of the things that Joe Biden actually said that he was going to do. So I put that link there as well, because I think we need to make people accountable. So make sure that you guys go over and check them out, especially if you have an Iraqi war veteran in that era. It's super important. So today we're going to talk about like the 10 things your combat veteran wants you to know. I actually got this from military.com, and we're going to talk about some of those things and then add a little more in. He is addicted to war, although he loves you. I know this sounds very strange, and people are like, "What? What do you mean by that?" When you get in that war situation, you get an adrenaline rush, and that fight or flight. Remember, we talked about that's usually what causes some of the PTSD. That adrenaline that they have, and this is from interviewing a ton of veterans, and then I went back and talked to more veterans to see how true this was. But it says in here that succeeding in combat defines a warrior. It places him in a brotherhood where he is always welcome and understood. The civilian world has its adrenaline junkies as well. Just ask any retired firefighter, police officer, or emergency room staff, and they'll miss it. I do miss my job as a paramedic. I do. So I think that it's very true that that brotherhood, that camaraderie, we talked about that before, that they're just that trust that they had with their brothers in arms is so important. And I think that it's something that we have to understand. They love us, but that addiction to that closeness and to that adrenaline and all in war, it's who they are. And sometimes that thing of fighting makes them feel alive. Um, this is something that I think is at the root of almost every PTSD relationship. It is a huge thing. It said, living for you is harder. And when I talked to him, it said that sometimes it's easier for them to die for you because they love you so much. And so um, it's harder sometimes for them to learn how to love us the way we need to be loved, because we require different things. We when we're having our breakdown or our moment, we want somebody to love us. We want somebody to wrap their arms around us. We want somebody to put their arms around us when we sleep at night. We want that. We crave that. And because they're always in that fight or flight mode in the back of their mind somewhere, and it's about protecting us long term, sometimes when we get in that space and they're in that space and we're having our moment, our breakdown, our weakness, our emotion, and we just want love. We want somebody to wrap their arms around us and let us cry and say it's okay. A lot of times we hear from our veterans, suck it up, or you don't need to cry, or whatever. I am a woman. My emotions and my wiring says girlfriend needs to cry. It is something I do. It is something a lot of us do. And a lot of them see that as a sign of weakness sometimes, and not so much weakness as a distraction from the mission. So sometimes it's hard for them. One of the things we hear a lot about is intimacy. And I'm talking about everything from those intimate in the moment moments where you just want it to be you and him and no outside interference or intimacy sexually, and they can't do that. And a lot of that just depends on what's going on in the world around them, because if they allow themselves to get to that super intimate level with you, they're not focused on the rest of the world and potential harm to you. So it's not that they're so concerned about what all's going on in the rest of the world that you don't matter. It's that their focus is protecting you. So that's just something that we need to kind of understand when it comes to where they are sometimes. And it's tough. And that's one of the things that when we started doing these one-on-one, um, that we've all kind of expressed. So that's the importance of this sense of community. When you form this sense of community here and what's going on here in the here and now, we are able to lift each other up in our darkest moments when we need that hug and when we need somebody to say it's going to be okay. And when we need that intimate moment type stuff that they can't give that because what they've been through won't allow them to. We're here for each other to say, it's okay. We got you today. You're amazing today. You're stronger today than what you think. Um, the next one is that the training kicks in means something very different to him. Um, you know, they have to be able to respond when there's a minimal threat going on. They have to be ready and keep that done. Um, and I think this is kind of cool, is that they have to be able to look at all the angles and determine threat risk. And so when they do that, either you'll find that they do it very quickly. And so we'll get these people who say, well, he doesn't think things through. Sorry. He doesn't think things through. Well, he does, but it's in a very quick manner. Or sometimes they're like, let's take a step back and assess the situation and take baby steps. And so you get one extreme or the other, but those are the things that are life saving in combat. You can't just say, oh, my buddy has been shot over here and let me run and go grab him. Because if you do, you're going to end up next to your buddy. Sometimes you'll have to think about, you know, somebody cover me. How do I get to them? And those are the things that we don't get that. And so their training becomes second nature to them. So let's talk about that we go through this training concept with them, and their training becomes second nature. That's what kept them alive to bring them home to you. Their training is what kept them alive to bring them home to you. So that meant they are very good at what they did. They are very good. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get situated and comfortable. I'm just not good. They're very good at what they did. They're very good at that. So their training becomes second nature to them. Um, we get this thing that sometimes the arguments that we get into or whatever becomes overkill and becomes an explosion and becomes okay, stop, we don't need to keep going, we got it. They want to, when they're training for a combat situation, they want to make sure dead is dead. Okay, not going to come back up and get them. So sometimes they overkill stuff because that's in their training. um, Tears can become unbearable to them. It creates an explosive emotion that can be difficult for them to control. Unfortunately, and this is, I'm reading this word for word, That can lead to warriors responding to strong waves of guilt by applying more maximum firepower on friends, family, or unfortunate. So maximum firepower sometimes now becomes their words. They're not using guns, they're becoming words. So when they get to a point that's going to create an emotional tear for them, or they get to a point where they see you in an emotional situation, it's going to become, let's give it everything we've got, whether it's hurt or anger or words they say. When they feel cornered, threatened, or emotionally vulnerable, all that stuff comes out in their hurtful words and some of the things they say and some of the actions that they do. That's just what happens. It is their emotional vulnerability that comes from their training because they can't do it. Um, this is a tough one, and we see it a lot. We hear this. He's pushing me away. We've been together. We've gone through thick and thin. We've done all this stuff together. I've always been here for him. I've always been there for them. This is what we do. And now we're comfortable. I thought we were closer than we've ever been before. Things are great. And now what happens is he starts to push you away. I'm going to leave. I need you to go away. Verbally words, hurtful words. I need you to go away. Um, when we show emotions, is that why they react? Yeah, it does, Michelle. When we show emotions, that's why they react the way they do, because it's in their training. And emotions, you can't bring emotions with you on the battlefield. So that's one of the things we do. And so this pushing you away, they don't want to be vulnerable. Okay, so they don't want to be vulnerable. So when they feel themselves getting vulnerable, sometimes they push you away, because if they do that, now their head is clear, because we all know that emotions can cloud our judgment. We see it as parents, we see it as doing, I say we do dumb stuff that wouldn't normally, when we go back and look at it, like, what the heck did we ever do that for? But our emotions clouded our judgment. And a lot of times that happens. Um, he knows that the military exists for a reason. Okay. And ultimately, and this is the real fact. The military doesn't exist to go out and play with guns and play with airplanes and play toy soldiers like they did when they were little in their sandbox. The military exists. The whole purpose of this is to kill people if they have to, right? Break things and defend us. Drop a bomb from an airplane, what does it do? It levels whatever. It happens. They learn to use a gun. They have to qualify. Why do they do that? Because we want them to come home to us, because they have to stop the threat that's coming, because that's the way it works. So they do understand that. And they know that that is the ultimate purpose of the military. They don't get in the military and say, oh, look, I signed up because today I want to drive a tank. Well, they may have, but those tanks have firepower. Make sense? They want to fly a plane. They're not flying a commercial airliner, taking people from one vacation destination to another. They're flying a warplane. What is usually attached to them? A bomb. Making sense somewhere? So they want you to understand that the military exists, but it existed for a very specific purpose for them. That very specific purpose for them was war. Um, he may not technically be a killer. He may have seen things or done things, but although they may look similar at first glance. He's a sheepdog protecting the herd, not a wolf trying to destroy it. His job is to protect home. Their job is to protect home. And home for them is us first and then our country. That's what they protect. So, yes, they are very protective over us. That's why they want to know where we're going, where your kids are, what's going on. They're not asking 20 questions to get up in your business. They're asking 20 questions because they want all the information so they can best protect us. It drives me crazy. And until I really started to understand it, it drove me crazy because if somebody called or somebody sent a message, I was like, who's that? What they want? And it wasn't that he was being nosy into my personal conversations because, like, now if I tell him, oh, I'm talking to Michelle or whoever, he's like, tell him I said hi. And he's not into the personal part of the conversation, but he's into making sure who's scamming you, who's doing something, who's a potential threat. And again, their MSO has a lot to do with how they feel. So if they were somebody who did cyber terrorism and that's what people hacking stuff and getting your personal information and creating viruses in your computer and spying on you through the camera in your computer or your phone or whatever, they tend to be more cautious about that and they want to know. And I know that when you start to look at some of the pictures, you're like, oh, well, this kind of explains it. Not excuses for bad stuff, but explaining why we do. Um, the explosive anger. Okay. The explosive, hey babe. The explosive anger. They had to cultivate that explosive anger in order to survive in combat. Okay, so let's say that again. They had to cultivate that explosive anger for them to survive in combat. Because at the end of the day, if they're shooting somebody or they're going after somebody or defending what they have to defend, they can't look at that person as, oh, well, he's the dad of 4 kids. And no, he's the enemy and I'm angry because he's going to hurt me or my home or my family or my buddy. So that explosive anger is what brought them safely home to you. Now, unfortunately for us, it's part of a package that is still here with us. But it's the reason that they came home. So when you see sometimes that anger and that rage, and we see this, you know, I don't ever condone hitting a human because I just think that's insane. But when all of a sudden you get frustrated and something is thrown across the house or you know they got and they hit a tree or they slam something down or a door slams or a cabinet door slams, that is them controlling their explosive anger. You have to remember in most cases they've been trained that they could do serious harm with their hands. So if what happens is we end up with something getting thrown across the room, it's better than them breaking your arm. And I don't mean that we should have to live in that environment. What I mean by this is that explosive anger got them through the combat situation. Okay. That got them through the combat session and that got them home. So just remember that. Here is one of the tough things. They may have only been 18, 19, or 20 when they first had to make a life and death decision for someone else. I'm 54 years old. I have a hard time making life and death decisions. Even in EMS, when I got in EMS, and we don't play God ever. We do our job and we do it the best we can. But I remember being taught very early on that if you go to the scene of a multiple person car wreck, you have to assess right then who is savable and who's not. So while that person may not already be deceased, but that person's injuries are so critical at that point that their chances of survival are slim. and there's somebody, two or three people whose injuries are bad, but they're less severe and their chances of survival are greater, we walk over the one that may be saying, help me, okay? That may be saying, help me, because we know there's no help for them long term when it comes to the numbers. So the same thing they're put in. They are set 18, 19, 20-year olds all of a sudden making forced to make a decision on who lives and who dies. It's tough. I go back to my James scenario, my friend's son James, my son's friend James. Kid, ball was a bomb coming towards you. What do you do at that point? There's a safe line. You've told the kid not to come any further. So at that point, the decision is made. You know he has a bomb in his hand. That last split second, he has to make the decision. And he was 19 years old when he made that decision. Do I shoot the child or do we all die? That's a lot of responsibility to put on anybody, but especially somebody who was 18, 19, 20. That's when they're first faced with that. So it's pretty tough. Um, you know, it's everything that they're going against everything they've been taught. When you're raising your children, you don't teach your 18-year-old how to make that choice. You don't teach your child at 15 that this is the choice they're going to make. You don't teach your child that. So when they become 18, 19, 20, and they have to make that choice, they are going against everything they've been taught. Okay. Um, they may believe that they're the only one who feels that way. Okay. So I really love this. And it says eventually he may realize that at least other combat vets understand. On some level, he doesn't want you to understand because that would mean you had to share his most horrible experiences and he wants someone to remain innocent. And we hear this all the time. I hear this all the time. Why won't he tell me everything he did or saw? Somebody has to remain innocent and pure. Somebody has to remain that way. That's why it is so important that we form groups of like people. That's why it's important to get our veteran talking to other veterans because they get it. That's why it's important that when your veteran says, hey, I'm in a spot, I need to go call my buddy, that you can understand that at that moment he needs to call his buddy and not share with you, even though you're like, well, what about me? I live with you. I'm your wife. I'm your spouse. I'm your this. I'm your that. Am I not important enough to share everything with? He did. He shared with you that he was in a spot that was so bad he needed to call his buddy because only his buddy had been through what he had. It's just like us when we're in an emotional wreck in our spots. Oh, I can't pick up the phone and call my friend who's never lived with this. I can't pick up the phone and call my mom who's never lived in this situation. I can't do that because they don't get it. They don't understand it. So then they form this judgment of our relationship that doesn't need to be there because this is what it's like living with somebody with PTSD. Just like them when they say, I need to call my buddy, or when they need to talk to other veterans, they get it. We don't. Somebody has to remain innocent. And so that's why sometimes you feel that distance. Um, he doesn't understand that you have that mama bear inside of you. Okay. I love this analogy. When we as women, particularly, and this is a man woman kind of thing, when we as women love somebody, we have this mama bear mentality that we want to wrap them up and protect. We do it with our children, we do it with our spouse. So when we see him hurt, we get angry. When we see him hurt, we want to fix it because that's what we do. We want to wrap our arms around them and say, we got you. We understand. We're here for you. First of all, we don't understand. And I thank God every day that I don't understand. It's hard sometimes to communicate. And sometimes I feel guilty because I don't understand. Here happens both sharing histories and buddy time. Yeah, we do that too. We share a lot of my experiences and his, but when they're in a very deep space, sometimes they can't do that. But we get that mama bear mentality wrapped around us. We've wrapped around our arms around them, and we want to protect them at all costs. And when we see the pain they go through, we get angry. We get angry. I think earlier this week we talked about how much I hated PTSD, and I actually wrote a letter to PTSD because I hate what it's done to him. There are days that I and I do. I love this country. I hate. I hate what has happened to our military. I hate the fact we're begging for help. I hate the fact that nobody sees it day in and day out because it's so easy for somebody, for a counselor who's never been through this and doesn't live with it 24/7 to say, well, they need to show you emotion. They need to, when you're having an emotional time, they need to share that with you. Well, that might be true in a regular relationship, but it's not true because they don't have the ability sometimes to do that. So we've brought all these guys home and women home, and we haven't given anybody the tools to help them. That's where we come in. Where we come in as a community. That's where we come in as their voice. That's where we come in as their advocate. That's why we have people who fight for their veterans every single day because we're that mama bear and don't you screw it. I can be mad at him all I want, but don't you screw it. And we do that. And I think that that's just part of who we are. This is amazing. When you don't understand, he needs you to give him the benefit of the doubt. There are times that you are just not going to understand. There are times that you are just not going to get it. The thing that we have to understand is this: in their minds, they already feel like a casualty, a walking casualty of war. And they don't want us to be. So that's why a lot of times you'll find your veteran saying, I love you, but I want a divorce. I love you, but don't you think that maybe at that point they're seeing that destructive behavior? Don't you think that maybe at that point they're realizing that they're realizing what's going on? Don't you think that maybe at that time they see the hurt going on in you and they know they can't change all the way and they can't be that person you want them to be? So the easiest thing to do is to say, I'm done. Because in their mind, that stops you from being a casualty. That stops you from being damaged. that stops you. Regardless of the pain you're going to face, they don't see that. They don't see that. So where you got to get into the strength of what we're doing, it is a very hard lesson to learn. Where you got to see where the strength is that when we preface stuff with them is, I'm not going anywhere. You can push, you can try me, you can do, but I'm not going anywhere. That was one of the hardest things I have ever had to learn, was that verbiage, because it created doubt early on in our relationship when I said, you need to pack your crap and leave. Okay. That created a sense of doubt so early on that now I have to go backwards in every single thing I do. I have to reassure him that I'm not leaving. I don't care how bad things get. We're not going anywhere. Neither one of us are leaving each other. Neither one of us are going anywhere. We may really hate each other at the moment in that room. We may really dislike each other at that moment. We may really dislike the other one's behavior, but we're not going anywhere. And you push me all you want, but I love you and I chose to love you. And for me, choosing to love you was the same thing as you picking up that pen and signing that agreement to go off into the military. I know what I'm in for. Okay. I may not have chose this initially, but I'm here today. All of y'all are here today. We know what we're in for. We know the potential risk. We know the potential dangers. We know the potential emotional stuff we deal with. We know that going into it, or at least now staying in it. And we're not going anywhere. We're going to fight with this. So that is something that when you look at things again, I think that we have to understand we're going to make better choices and be able to use Michelle's words early on when we had a conversation early on in our friendship. We have to learn to evolve together. Okay. We have to learn to evolve together. That's where we have to be. He brings his baggage. I bring my baggage. I said something stupid like pack your shit and leave. And I've done it on more than one occasion. And now, months and months and months and months and months in, I'm not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. But there is always that seed of doubt. So we have to get past that and we have to evolve past that. But knowing how they think, knowing how the PTSD affects them, knowing what it's like to be, we don't know, but at least hearing 10 things from combat veterans that they wish that they could tell us. Because remember, communication isn't always easy. So knowing these things, now we can evolve the way we react to get the results we want. I was talking to a friend early this morning and we were talking about a situation and my comment was, are you happy with things the way they are? And if you're not, does it really matter who changes to get the result? So are you happy with them saying something, doing something, whatever? And you're like, well, why should I be the one to change? But if you're not happy, does it matter who changes to get the result? At the end of the day, does it matter who changes? Because if you make a change that gets you the results you need, then he's going to change what he's doing. So you basically have evolved together. It's an interesting thought. Pearl and I've come a long way. We have a long way to go, but every relationship has a long way. We are much more. I watch from from the very beginning at some of the explosive arguments. And I won't say we still don't have explosive arguments because I'm a bitch. I'm hard to live with. I'm not saying we still don't have those explosive arguments because we do. But we're now learning to, when we see them getting to that point, to be able to say, stop. Let's sit down and talk like adults and communicate. Let's be grown up. And he's usually the one who tells me I have a knee-jerk reaction that wants to scream and holler and yell because I'm a yeller. So anyway, I really wanted to share this with y'all today. I think that when I read this, it just made so much more sense. It gave me insight into why they think the way they do sometimes. And it gave me total insight into that. So often I hear us talk about, spouses talk about, it's not an excuse for bad behavior. No, it's not an excuse for bad behavior. But when we've given and given and given and given and bent and bent and bent and allowed this behavior to go on, come on. What do you think they're going to act? So we have to unact that behavior. We have to slowly put those limits back. We have to slowly say this is not acceptable because it's not acceptable to either one of you. It's become habit. And trust me, we have a ton of bad habits we have to break in this house. We're learning to recommunicate. We're learning to stop taking each other. Those are our habits. And as a result, we are way better than. All right, so let me wrap this up. Y'all have a great day. I got to. Do not forget, let's talk tonight at 7 on Zoom. The link is there. I will try to repost it riding down the road, so give me a little bit to do that. I'm still available for one-on-ones. I know I have a 1 o'clock that's not on the schedule, so we're still available for one-on-ones today. So if you need to talk to somebody, just reach out and put that right in. It comes right to my email. I'll get you on. We've had some great conversations, and it's been a lot of great responses on that one-on-ones. What else is going on? There's just so much going on. Again, please go check out Burn Pit 360. They're on our Facebook page. Just make sure that your veteran, if they are Iraqi war heir, gets registered in the registry. Um, if they would have had this with the Agent Orange and Vietnam veterans with the registry, it would have been a huge difference. And make sure that if you have Iraqi air war, that you go check out Burn Pit 360. I'm going to give a shout out to that tribe, and I'll also have them on our Facebook page today. But this guy got out of the military, retired, and realized they're based out of Washington, that there was nothing to transition the veterans to the real world, to the normal world, and he has put together an organization called Vet Tribe, and they work together and help transition and get jobs and financial stuff straight, and learn to get rid of some of the military jargon. And they're just a fabulous group of people, and I cannot begin to thank Bill enough for speaking with me about that. And later this week, probably next week, I am going to talk to my dear friend Jeff with Soldier Hard. If you haven't heard his music, I'll put a song on there today. And how he fought PTSD through music and how he is spreading the word through that. Next year will be the 10th anniversary of Recon One, the label that he's formed to do this. I'm so excited to talk with him. And he's going to talk about how he got through it and what he faced. That will be exciting to be able to hear what he's been through. Anything else y'all need to chat about, just drop us a line. I love y'all. I'm Stacy. This is Loving My Veteran, and y'all have a great day.